Okay, today we are talking about graphing lines in both slope-intercept form and standard form. So to start off, slope-intercept form is simply y equals mx plus b. So that's kind of what that equation's format will look like. It's going to have that y over on the left by itself, and then m is the slope, so there will be a number plugged in there, and b is the y-intercept. And I put the instructions right here on how to graph those, so we'll come back to those. It's pretty straightforward if it's already in this form. So you just plot the y-intercept or the number in the b location of the equation, and you use the slope to create two other points on the graph. All right, now looking at standard form, it's going to be ax plus by equals c. And for standard form, you need to first rewrite the equation in slope-intercept form. And by doing this, you're solving for y, and then you will graph the line using the same steps as above. All right, so let's look at these. So each one I want you to think about first, do we need to rewrite it? So a gives us y equals 3x minus 4. Well, that is already slope-intercept form, so I'm going to just kind of start going. So I want to label, all right, 3 is my m, or my slope, so I can tell that. And I'm actually going to write 3 or 3 over 1, and I'll show you why I'm doing that here in a second. And then the y-intercept is our b, and don't forget to keep this sign here with it, so -4. All right, so your steps from above say plot the y-intercept first. Okay, so my y-intercept is -4. Well, I'm not going to put it on, well, that's 3, but I'm not going to put it on -4 here because that's the x, okay? That would be where it crosses the x. And I want the y-intercept, so I'm thinking my vertical axis. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and plot a point. And that is my y-intercept. I'm actually going to do that in green so we remember that's what that is. All right, now the slope. It said to use the slope to get 2 more points on our graph. Okay, and for this, so the reason I wrote this is 3 over 1 earlier. I'm going to write this out here. So 3 over 1, the top is the rise, and the bottom is the run, if you remember that. So if it's positive, or like we talked about in the last lesson, positive 3 tells me 3 up, and a positive 1, or run, tells me 1 right. Because remember, positive run is right, negative run is left, for our x's and our y's. All right, so from this point, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 up and 1 right. Now, I could also do the opposite of this. So I could go 3 down, but I have to do the opposite for both, and 1 left. I'll show you why. So if I go 1, 2, 3, and left, it's because we read a graph left to right. So if I was reading this left to right, I would then be going 1, 2, 3 over 1, 1, 2, 3 up, right 1. So it would still follow that pattern even though we went backwards to get to that. Okay, now I'm going to just connect those lines, or those dots. Oops, that was kind of crooked. All right, so I want you to take a pause and go ahead and try B. Okay, hopefully you're checking your answer. So, oops, M is going to be -1/4, and then y-intercept is 2. So it is already in slope-intercept form. So I'm just going to start off 1, 2 with my y-intercept. Right here, crosses the y-axis. Now I'll use 2 points to do my slope. So I can do -1/4, which is down 1. Let me write this differently here. And 4 right. Or I can do 1 up, 4 left. Okay, so I'm going to start with the 1 down. So 1 down, 4 right. 1, and then 1, 2, 3, I could go 1 up and 4 left. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this one is a much more gradual slope since it was that fraction. So it was -1/4. So a fraction is going to give you a more gradual slope. A larger number like 3 over here that we had will give you a steeper slope, as you can see. Okay, so now we're going to look at when it is in standard form first. So we have 6x minus 5y equals 30. So I'm solving for y is my goal here. So I'm going to start with subtracting 6x. And I can't actually do 30 minus 6x. So I'm just going to put it, kind of attach it on here. I like to put the x at the front. That way I'm already kind of setting it up in slope-intercept form. I know that 30 was positive because it didn't have a sign on it. Right? Only have to divide by -5 now. And I want to divide both parts by -5 to get them in kind of the simplest way that I can. So 6/5, and it's going to be, you can do it as a decimal, but it's probably easiest to keep it as an improper fraction. That way it's easy to move on your graph. So my negatives will cancel out there. So I just have 6/5x, and then 30 divided by -5 is -6. All right, now you want to pick your slope and your y-intercept. So my slope is 6/5, and my y-intercept is -6. So I will start with y-intercept, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then for my slope, I'm going to move up 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and right 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, now in this case, we can't actually do the opposite and go down because we don't have enough space. So I can just do one more, I think I can fit in one more up version. So I'm moving from that last point I did. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then right 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, just barely fit it on there. All right, and then connect your points. All right, take a pause and try D on your own. All right, hopefully you were rewriting, and I want to just make a quick note of something here. I started rewriting, and then I divided by 3, and I have y equals, and there was no coefficient on my x, so remember you want to put a 1 for that. So that's now -1/3 x, and then 6 divided by 3 is +2. So that gives me a slope of -1/3, and that gives me a y-intercept of 2. So I'll start with that. On the y-axis, up 2. Now using my slope, I can go, okay, so I can do that slope 2 ways. I can do 1 down for the -3 right, or 1 up, 3 left. So I'll do both here. So 1 down, 3 right, or 1 up, 3 left. And I want to kind of do a visual check here. So on C, my slope was positive and my line is going up and to the right, so that's good. On D, my slope is negative and my line is slowly going down. So you want to kind of check that and make sure that matches up to your slope. Okay, now last couple here. Undefined and 0 slope lines. So these are going to look a little bit different, so I want to address that. So the graph of y equals n is what we're looking at. So let's just start with A, because that looks like this one here. So if A is y equals 5, I'm just going to look, okay, well, if my y has to be 5, where is that at? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now it doesn't say x equals 5, so I'm not going over here, right? Y has to equal 5. So I'm just going to draw a line and want you to think about this for a second. So essentially here, there's no x at all right? So I want to think every point along this line, does it have a coordinate value of y equals 5? Well, yes, because they're all 5 high, okay? Now the x value is different all the way along here. It's all different, but the y stays the same. So looking at this graph, slope is like a representation of steepness. So or a change in elevation. Does this slope have a change in elevation? No, it's staying flat. So the slope is actually 0. Okay. The y-intercept in this case, well, would be 5 because that is where it's crossing the y-axis. So really, this equation is kind of like this. 0x equals 5, but if it's 0 for the slope, 0 times x would just be 0, so we don't need to show that, and they just put y equals 5. So that's our first little thing here. So the graph of y equals 9 will be you can say flat or horizontal, I'm going to write both. And has a 0 slope. So you probably have a guess for the next one, but let's go ahead and look. So if x equals -2, I'm not going down because that would be my y. So I want to go 1, 2, -2. All right. And if x has to equal -2, that means this whole thing, that's a little crooked, a little better. X has to be equal to -2 every time. So all of these points along here have an x value of -2. So it would be like -2 something here. All right. So that slope is actually, you can't measure it because it doesn't really have a stopping point. Okay. You could say, well, it's going up 1, but it's not going left or right. So it would be 1 over, well, we don't know. So that is undefined slope. But the y-intercept, does it have a y-intercept in this case? No. Not in this case. The only way it would really is if it were on 0, I guess. But then it would touch indefinitely. So this will be a vertical line and has an undefined slope. All right, that is all for today. Hopefully this will help you with your homework on that, and please let me know if you have any questions. Just a heads up, after the next lesson, we will have a quiz the following class period, or maybe it's 2. I think we have a review day. Just to kind of go over all these, applying slope and graphing the lines and all of that. So just to give you a heads up on that. All right, have a great day.